Hey everyone, it's Deja with Knit and Crochet Ever After, and today we are making this super beginner knit purse. This is one of my forever free patterns. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I am Deja. I do knit and crochet tutorials and patterns and giveaways and all kinds of stuff. I call this a forever free pattern because I have some videos that you'll find where it was unlimited free time. So limited time free. I can never say that right. But I give it away for a limited time and it varies. And then after that limited time, it goes to my pattern shop and then you have to pay to get that pattern. So why I'm telling you this, make sure that you're liking and subscribing and hitting the notification bell so that you can get those limited time free patterns along with the forever free patterns like this one. So this is the folded rectangle purse. I know, you're like, rectangle? No, that's not a rectangle. It used to be. That's why this is a super beginner project, because all we're doing is creating one big rectangle and a little I-cord, which I'm going to do a tutorial in this video on, but you definitely don't have to do the I-cord if you're not ready or don't want to. It's pretty simple though, so I think you'll like it, but you can always use rope, leather, just knit a little strap, you know, a little garter stitch strap, because that's all we're doing for this pattern is garter stitch. It's just knitting every single row, big rectangle that we're going to fold and seam. The yarn that I used for this was from my Knit Crate subscription. They said it's a DK weight. I think it's more worsted weight. It's pretty thick and squishy, so I would go if you're going to be matching my gauge, but I'm going to explain how you don't have to even do gauge, which makes it even more beginner, or even like you can just totally customize it, which I'll talk about near the end of the video with different colors, how you can just make it your own. But if you want to make it the exact same size as what you see here, you'll want to match gauge that's in the pattern, and I would pick more of a worsted weight. I said this was a DK and I said DK in the pattern, but I'm going to tell you in the video it's probably closer to worsted, so get with that if your gauge is not quite meshing. But I'm really liking this yarn. This is a wool yarn. I would recommend a dense kind of yarn. So wool, if you have a wool allergy, I would do a very dense acrylic. So like a Red Heart Super Saver, one of those where you're like, oh, this is not very soft. Get one of those because that'll make a better purse than getting like a Vanna's Choice or a Karen Simply Soft. So stick with the nice dense yarn. I'll put a link in the description for my Knit Crate subscription if you've never checked it out, and then also for the pattern, of course. So get that downloaded and we're gonna start working on this guy. So you're about to see this in rectangular form in just a second, and I'll explain everything. The rectangle portion will talk about making it different sizes and how you don't have to get gauge, but you're basically going to be doing knit stitch every single row. It's the simplest thing ever. You can change this up to any stitch pattern you can think of once you understand the rectangle and how it's put together. So really get creative with it. But let's go show you the rectangle and more information. Okay, so to make our purse, all you need to make is a rectangle. That is it. And a I-cord, which we'll go over. That's not hard at all either. But we're just doing garter stitch for a long time. This is a great beginner project. If you really want to practice garter stitch and keeping edges nice, this yarn, I love this yarn. This is from Knit Crate, and it just lays well. It lays so well. I did not block this at all, and you can see how nice the edges are. It doesn't have like a lot of variation in it, so it just stays consistent throughout. If you're like using thick and thin yarn, that could be a problem. So try to get a yarn that has like a consistent thickness. Yeah, I'm like, I had to think about what I just said because I'm like, was that correct? So for the rectangle, you can follow the pattern if you like making gauge. I don't, so I encourage you to not follow the pattern. This is a super simple, customizable rectangle. You're basically making 3 like perfect, and nothing's perfect, so 3 squares, close as you can get it. Let's see if I can even turn this into 3 squares. By the end of the video I might be able to. So it's really 3 squares as a rectangle. So what you need to do, you can cast on what I said, 36 stitches, or you can cast on something similar. If your yarn's a little thinner, make it a bigger cast on, a little thicker, make it a little smaller, if you want kind of the same size as what I have. But for me, for this one, it's 8 inches wide. Pretty close, very close to 8 inches. So to make those 3 squares, I have to multiply by 3 to say that I need 24 inches of length. So again, start stitching. Knit stitch, knit stitch, knit stitch. Get it to like maybe like this high up, like this big of a chunk. Then measure across. Get it, nice and flat on your whatever. I use circular needles so that I can get it nice and flat. Measure across, whatever you have, times it by 3, and make your rectangle that long. So as you're going and you get like maybe right here, start measuring as you're going. Kind of maybe use some gauge. Go, hey, it takes me like 4 rows to get an inch. So now I need 2 more inches, so I need 8 more rows, and kind of pay attention like that, so that when you get close, right before that inch mark, you're gonna bind off nice and not too loose, not too tight, just to make it nice, so that you have that really good rectangle. If it's not perfect, don't worry. You can fudge it when you're sewing it together, because I had made another one in different colors and I was a little bit off, but it was fine when I sewed it. Once you sew it, it's all good. So make your rectangle. I'm going to show you how to make an I-cord, and then we're going to come back and put it all together. So let's go make the I-cord. Okay, so to make our I-cord, we're going to start with 2 strands of yarn, and you can adjust this. You can do 3, 4, 1, whatever you want to change the thickness of the I-cord. This is pretty thick yarn, so I'm going to do 2 strands, and we're going to do a long tail cast on of 4 stitches. So just make sure you have enough of a tail. That should be plenty. And then we're using either circular needles, which I'm just using the same needles that I did the body of the bag with, or straight needles. So same size needles as what we made the bag with. And we're going to do a long tail cast on of 4 stitches. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we're ready to start our I-cord. Keep your tail, make sure you have enough to weave into the bag. So we're going to use this to attach it to the bag, so make sure it's a little bit longer so that you can use it easily. So to make an I-cord, we're basically just doing knit stitch like over and over again in rows, except there's a little change. We're not going to turn at the end of the rows, so let's just start with round 1. It's going to be a total of 30 altogether, but you're just going to knit your 4 stitches. Then at the end of the row, you are not going to turn like you normally would. You're going to leave your stitches where they are and move your needle. So I'm going to push my needle through and pull through to the other needle so that I am ready to go for round 2. I call it row round because these are going to get kind of they're going to start working. They're not going to work on the round. It's going to turn roundular, circular shape when we go. So our tail is on the left. We're needles pointing to the right, so we're going to do that first stitch, and we're going to pull that yarn over to do that first stitch. And by pulling that over, it will force your stitches together into a tube. So we're going to do 4 stitches again. So that's our second row round. Then again, and you can kind of pull on it as you're going. You'll see it kind of scrunch together. So again, I drop my needle, I pull through, I come back to the right side from my yarn on the left. And you can see I kind of just push it down so I can get it over to where I'm going to be working it. and I grab that. I make it a little bit tighter than normal just to pull that yarn all the way over so that it will get that rounded shape that I want in the I-cord. So again, you can kind of pull on it, and once you get a couple rounds in, it starts to take shape better. The first couple rounds don't look like much, but you're going to do 30 of these, so you're just going to keep pushing it over, starting back from the right side, pulling that yarn over from the left, and working those 4 stitches. And you're going to do that for 30 rounds, or rows, whichever you want to call it. And you'll see as I pull it, it comes together in the back so it looks like one full tube. So I'm going to go ahead and work the 30 rounds and come back and show you what it looks like, and then we'll construct the whole thing. Okay, I've done 29 rounds, rows, whatever you want to call them. So you can see it totally forms up like a tube. I'm going to bind off now, so I'm gonna just do kind of one last row round. So again, pulling it through, and I'll do it pretty tight. Like, I don't need a loose bind off. This isn't meant to like be worn or anything, so pull them nice and tight as you're doing them, so it'll keep it closed at the end. You can kind of make up for it when you're also sewing it to the bag, so it's not a huge deal. Then we will fasten off with a good sized tail again, so we can have that other end nice and long to attach it. So go about there. So there's good. And then we're going to go grab the bag and put it all together. Okay, our garter stitch rectangle's done, our I-cord is done, and now we're ready to put this guy together. So we're just going to do 3 simple folds to get this looking like a purse. We're going to start on the opposite ends of the rectangles, and we're going to fold them over like triangles. A little 45-degree angle action going on afterwards. So once again, grab one corner, bring it down, make a little triangle, pat it nice and nice, and then grab the other end and go the opposite way. Go up, pat it nice and nice, and then we'll have a little square right in the middle. Now we want to create the actual bag, and I always forget which way to go because you're gonna do it on the diagonal. So I don't remember if I need to fold it on this diagonal or if I need to fold it on this diagonal. But how I can tell is I start to do it and I go, that doesn't look like a bag, that looks like a parallelogram or something. So I stop and I go in the opposite diagonal. So when I do the opposite diagonal, all of a sudden I have a purse. Hooray! So that was the right way. So I have 2 seams right here and then one on the opposite side right there. So when you flip it, it's like the exact same seam. We are going to mattress stitch that. Don't whip stitch, it gets bulky and weird, it like bunches up. You gotta mattress stitch it. So whether you want to start from the corner and work your way out, or start from here and work your way in, whatever you prefer. So you're gonna mattress seam, stitch, whatever, these 2 seams together. Then you're gonna have your whole purse pretty much done. Last but not least, take your I-cord, your long tails, and just run them through the corner here a couple of times. I kind of go in and out, like through here and then back through the I-cord and back again, and then I weave it into the I-cord, so you don't have to mess with weaving it into here. You just shove it right down the middle and pull it through, and it's great. It totally works. So I'm gonna go put this sucker together and I'm gonna come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, so that is the rectangle, folded rectangle purse. This is a finished product, of course. You've seen it already. I wanted to talk about making it your own with color changes because I've got one that I made up, and you'll also notice it's a little bit bigger, so you can customize that size as well, as I told you. This is an 8-inch wide and this is a 10-inch wide. It really kind of ballooned out a little because this is a more drapey yarn. This is a more dense yarn, so you can see kind of the difference in that as well. It'll give you more of a drape and a longer kind of bag to it. But the important thing that I wanted to point out was that I did color changes on this one. I actually did 4 color changes. This was from my knit crate as well. This was the one where they gave me 4 different color yarns, and so I wanted to use all the yarns in one project. And this is still the same thing. It's still one rectangle, and it's just color blocked with 4 different colors. So it started with like one of the creams, and then it came around to the green, then it came around to the other cream, and then it went to the blue. And then you just seam it together and you get this cool effect. And they were all like 36 rows from what this was, so I made them all the exact same row count so that the seams would match up like that. So you can definitely change colors. One important thing to remember though is that, because when I first was designing, I was like, I want to put like a million different stripes and it will look really cool with it all kind of put together. However, part of your rectangle is not seamed and your edges are visible, so you want to be careful with your edges because they will be not sewn in certain areas. But if you're color changing, you can't run your tails along your edge. You have to weave them in because you will see them. So that's one thing to think about when you're doing the color changes. You may not want to do too many. But if you are adventurous, I would love to see one with tons of color changes. Please tag me on Instagram if you make one. I want to see what it looks like, or Facebook, wherever. I would love to see somebody really do a ton of different color changes and weave in all the ends. You could also do color changing yarn. Super simple. No, only 2 ends to weave in. So that's another option for you. But you can see that with that seam, you get kind of a different effect, because on this one, it looks like it's kind of one piece, just one seam coming down. But when you see the different colors, it almost looks like as if you're seaming it here and seaming it here and seaming it there. Like tons of different seams. Looks much more complicated than it is, but it's just the same exact thing. It's one rectangle, fold it up and seam. So you can really get creative. You can also see that my I-cord, I did a 4-strand, and I did all the different 4 colors of this. These are slightly different. You can see a different color that it was sent to me. But the I-cords, they have, this is a 2-strand I-cord, and this is a 4-strand. So you can see the difference in thickness. This yarn is, I think it's thinner than this yarn. You can kind of see like the density of it. It's just, I think this is way more squishier. I like this yarn a lot. But you can really customize how you want this purse. So I would love to see what you guys are making when you're trying out this bag and making it your own. Please tag me on Instagram and Facebook with your pictures. I love to love on those posts. If you like free patterns, make sure that you're liking and subscribing and hitting the notification bell. I am Deja with Knit and Crochet Ever After, and thank you for watching.